Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. So I thought we'd do a recap of the weekend's racing, just to point out a few horses that are definitely catching my eye going forward, the ones I'll be interested in, and just a few other talking points throughout the weekend. Starting off, we'll look at some of our selections as well, how they got on. They didn't have a very good day at all. But we will still talk about them and discuss why I think it kind of went wrong. Starting off the listed race at Chester over a mile and 4, where we were on Yakel, who did drift. Al Karim was very well supported, but then they allowed Al Karim to set his own pace at the front. When you're letting the highest rated horse dictate from the front like that, I think you're asking for trouble. And Yakel, Adam Farragut, I think he should have been a lot more forceful. I think I would have wanted him to, try and take on Al Karim at the front. He allowed Al Karim to set his own fractions. I don't think it was the best of rides on Yakel. Granted, he might not have still beaten Al Karim. Maybe Al Karim just is better than listed quality. And to be fair, the form of Al Karim's winning this race last year was beating Blue Stocking. Maybe that was just far too strong, and Yakel can win a listed race, but not when he gets potentially a group horse in against him. I do think that was a bit of a poor ride from Adam Farragut. I was more disappointed with one later on from Adam Farragut, personally. But Al Karim, they could keep coming back for this race now, couldn't they? Do this. He's only 5, come back and win it a few times on the trot. They've won it twice. They could certainly come back next year as well, if it hasn't gone well throughout the season. The next race I wanted to talk about was the 2:15 at Leopardstown. Now, this was a poor ride. I don't know what Tom Marquand thinks is going to happen by dropping Maljoom right out the back. Yes, he's slowly away. But when he's slowly away, you then need to get going and you need to start picking off rivals earlier. He just sat there and went, I'll just sit out the back. I never totally understand that. I know you've dropped, you jumped out slowly. But when you've jumped out slowly, you've then got to do something about that. And he didn't. He sat out the back. The way the track rides meant he was so far back at the end, turning into the straight. He's absolutely motored, and with another half a furlong, he would have got up for at least second and been closing on the winner. I just feel sometimes jockeys go, well, I'm riding a hold-up horse. I will always ride it from the back and not do anything depending on... they don't make any mid-race manoeuvres. They don't change how it's being, how they're riding the horse based on what's happening in the race. They don't seem to have any initiative, jockeys. And there's worse examples coming up later on in this video. But I still think Maljoom is a nice horse. He's clearly very tricky. You would imagine he goes back to Ascot next time. There's probably going to be something better than him in the race, isn't there? What's he in? He's in the Champion Stakes and the QE2 Stakes. I think we'll see him in the QE2 Stakes over a mile. But let's just have a look on my other screen. Who else is in against him at the moment? Charon, Fallen Angel, Opera Singer, Factor Javao, Metropolitan, Hartum, Henry Longfellow. Yeah, there's horses better than him in this race. I wouldn't be backing him for the QE2 Stakes. Moving on to the 2:25, the Portland, won in very impressive style by American Affair. Although only getting there on the line, he was unlucky, and it would have been a very unlucky loser. He's going to end up in group races next year, isn't he? Clearly very, very progressive. Runs down Apollo 1 and JM Jungle and Rumstar. They were all there. The disappointments for us were Vintage Clarets and Aberama Gold. Vintage Clarets travelled quite nicely, didn't pick up. Aberama Gold was off the bridle quite early. Clearly wants softer ground. When is he going to get it? Hopefully soon. For Vintage Clarets, I do think we will probably be backing him next time as well. Because I think next time he'll be running in... Let's just load up his form. Surely he goes to this race at York. The Vickers.bet handicap. This was on the 23rd of September last year. You can see he won it after finishing 5th at Doncaster in the Portland. I think he will come back to this race at York, and I still think he'll run a really big race, to be fair. He was rated, when he won at York, he was rated 91. He ran off 90 this weekend. I imagine the handicap will drop him another couple. He might be running off a £3-4 lower mark than when winning at York. So yeah, he's definitely 1-4. Next time, an Aberama Gold just wants that soft ground. In terms of everything else in the race, I don't really think I saw any Eyecatchers particularly, not really. So I won't be giving up on R2 going forward though. Moving on to the 240, this was frustrating in the fact that our last time out Nap Spirit Mixer, who won at Chester for us and actually won us the monthly Nap competition, went out and won the Watergate Cup. Vera Verto did get really well supported, our selection, went off the 7-2 favourite in the end. Wasn't favourite when we talked about it the previous day. Went off the 7-2 favourite and got outpaced. Maybe I'm being harsh on Adam Farragut. Maybe he should have been a bit more positive. With that in mind, though, the fact that he got outpaced over 2, but then ran on quite nicely, I wonder if we'll see Gavin Cromwell bring him back for the Chester Cup next season. Hugely disappointing. Anyway, not to see Law of the Sea in this race. I think he would have won it. Ian did run 3. They finished 7th, 8th and 9th. They were all rubbish. He's got his placement wrong with a few of his horses this year, I feel. So yeah, the one possibly to take out the race is Vera Verto next year for the Chester Cup. Yeah, I'm sure he'll be back. 250, the Matron Stakes, the Group 1 for fillies and mares over a mile, and Porta Fortuna won it, and yeah, she's class, isn't she? Her form now is brilliant, especially this season. She was second in the 1,000 guineas behind Almalka, beaten her neck. She then beat Opera Singer, beat Jabara, and beat Fallen Angel over a mile in Group 1s. She is the best 3-year-old mile filly horse in training at the moment, isn't she? Really, really impressive. Could go, I guess, for the Sun Chariot at Newmarket. Would be taking on older horses. I think she deserves her chance, doesn't she? A lot of those at the head of the market are actually 3-year-olds. She's beaten all of them. The only one she would have to beat is Inspiral, who maybe isn't the horse she used to be. Whereas Porta Fortuna, I'd love to see her go for that Sun Chariot Stakes on the 5th of October. 3 o'clock at Doncaster, won by Kinross. That was great to see. Clearly a very, very good 7 furlong horse, isn't he? He has one chance of dropping back to 6, and that is at Ascot, which is a race that he's actually won before. It is the Kipco British Champion Stakes, British Champion Sprint Stakes. He wants soft ground. If he gets the soft ground, then he would definitely have a chance. I've had a look at the rivals against him. I don't think there's a really good 6 furlong horse even. I mean, Montasib is second favourite. Montasib is a handicapper that's been winning races just by default because of how it's been run or the soft ground. Then you've got Kind of Blue, Mule Stream, Unequal Love, all handicappers. I think the one that still interests me the most out of all of those in the Sprint Stakes is Flora of Bermuda, who I thought was very unlucky at Haydock. Should have gone a lot closer. Could still be progressing. She is only 3. I say she. Is it she? Yes, she is only 3. She could be the interesting one, I think, in that race. But I don't really want any of the others, and Kinross might win it almost not by default, but because it looks a weak division. Moving on to the Irish Champion Stakes, Economics beat Augusta Rodin. That was a great race. Interesting that Tom was much more prominent on Economics and on Porta Fortuna, and was able to go close from those positions. I think he learnt after riding Maljoom and seeing how far back he ended up turning in that he couldn't afford to do that on any of the other 2. This was a great race. I know people cramp the form of Augusta Rodin, so does that cramp the form of Economics? Not for me. I think it was a really, really good performance from the pair of them. And it was interesting to see that Aidan O'Brien also ran Los Angeles in this race, who ran well. He'll probably end up in the Arc Next. Nothing really to come from that race, though. Similarly, the St Ledger, there's nothing really of interest for me in this race going forward. Jan Bruegel just beat Illinois. They were the right two. I hoped Illinois would hang on. He didn't, but thankfully we didn't get involved in that race. Moving on to the 4:15 at Doncaster, there's definitely a couple here that are interesting. So we liked Liberty Lane coming into this. Was very eye-catching a couple of runs ago, when Connections also won the race. The disappointing horse here for me was Mr. King, who'd run such a good race on his first run for Ian Jardine. I wanted to see them running in the Cambridgeshire over a mile and 1. I think this mile and 2 was too far. I think they stepped up too much too quickly. He'll be interesting dropping back in trip, and I just feel that the handicapper might drop the horse in the handicap now. Could be interesting going forward, Mr. King. I know he's finished 10th of 10. Dropping back in trip and down the handicap could be interesting. The eye-catcher of the whole weekend, for me, ran at Doncaster in a maiden stakes race won by Yaber, who won at 33 to 1. You don't often get William Haggar's horses winning at 33 to 1 or 50.0 on the exchanges. The eye-catcher, without a doubt, was Valedictory. That one, the horse who finished third, hugely eye-catching. Long way back from an early stage, ran on really, really strongly. I think could be very interesting going forward. Valedictory clearly wants further than this already. He's one that you definitely want to have in your NagMe, so let's add him. Clueless early on, ran on really strongly. So I've already added Valedictory. 5:25. Gutted with Bo Pedro not to be able to run down Johan, just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Johan was out front, got away at a crucial time, and our Bo Pedro didn't quite run him down, ended up losing by half a length. If the handicapper leaves him alone, it's unlikely, but if he does, I would be interested in Bo Pedro again off 93. The fact that Johan has actually won a Lincoln before, so it's, Doncaster is clearly a track he runs well at. He'd run well before off 106, finishing 8th. Yes, he disappointed in the Lincoln this year. Returned after that one run, come back for this race and bounced back and won. Clearly a very good horse. I mean, he'd won the Lincoln off 102, so Johan was a good horse, and there was no doubting that. I just hope that Bo Pedro was a bit better handicapped. Proved not to be. I'm hoping they leave him alone on 93, because Bo Pedro has clearly shown that he can run well off this current mark. Moving on to the 150, the sprint handicap in Ireland. This was yesterday now, so we've moved on to yesterday. The two horses you want to add to your NagMe from this race: Greek Flower, beaten by the draw. I'm going to say as much as that. Travelled beautifully over the far side. And Strike Red similarly ran a similar type of race, never able to get involved, beaten by draw, clearly coming down in the handicap, looking nicely progressive again, back to a mark that he can run well off. I think he would have gone close if he'd got a better draw. Has won off a higher mark before. I think he's won off 95. He's currently off 94. I think the handicapper will leave him alone. He has indeed won off 95. He won at the Curragh, so there's definitely chances for him to come back to the UK and go well. I thought his effort behind El Monjib was a good effort as well, so yeah, Strike Red is definitely one to add to your NagMe as well, whilst Greek Flower was beaten by the draw, finished 7th. Is clearly frustrating because he's finished second his last 3 efforts before that. Clearly tricky to get right, but I don't think the handicapper's quite got him still, even off 87. Wouldn't surprise me if they actually tried coming over to the UK to see if there's a big handicap over here they could win. But yeah, Greek Flower is also worth adding to your NagMe, I feel. This was one of those races as well where, okay, we didn't really know it at this stage, so I'll be less harsh on the jockeys, but let's actually skip forward a bit to the... Which race is it? This one here, the Flying 5 at the Curragh. So we'd already seen in that first race that far side, don't get involved. Near side is where you want to be. Now, Coming to the Flying 5, we can see that Bradshaw is drawn nicely in 14. Believing and Makarova have terrible draws. Why did the jockeys, of those two, why did Ryan Moore and Tom Buckon, look, two big names, why didn't they go, we've got to drop and switch? As soon as we start, we've got to pull back and switch over to this near side and hope that we get a bit of a clear run or a bit of luck and gaps opening. You're not going to win over that far side. Believing probably would have pushed Bradshaw really close if he'd been over this near side. They've been drawn next to each other. It would have been a really, really close race. They weren't, but no jockeys ever really seem to do that. I want to see more jockeys use their initiative in races and go, right, I've seen that where the pace bias is, or I've seen where the track bias is. It's over that far side. I'm a hold-up horse. I've got to move and get in behind as quick as I can. They don't. They just go straight forward and stay in a straight line, and it just doesn't work so often. And so often you can tell early on that you're not going to win the race because you're you're on the wrong side. I think I saw a ITV, or they're useless, aren't they? I saw them suggesting, they would want another go, Believing over 6 furlongs. Yeah, they would. Bradshaw's a 5 furlong horse, not a 6 furlong horse. So, I think that's just ridiculous comments. Again, ITV were all over the place this weekend. They just haven't got a clue. ITV pundits, have they, or analysts? I mean, we had that comment. We had the whole thing with Megan Nichols. That then found it a joke that she got beat. She went off favourite. She drifted badly over to that far side and got caught on the line, and they thought it was hilarious. They did some giving up their selections whilst being in burger vans and stuff. I'm like, what on earth is that all about? They've turned it into a laughing stock. It's no longer a professional. ITV Racing is not a professional broadcast. It's just it's almost like a comedy sort of thing. It's awful. But anyway, I think more jockeys need to use their initiative and start making more radical early race moves and mid-race moves. So back to the analysis of previous races. Purple Lily, I was disappointed with Purple Lily. I thought she came there travelling really well, and I wonder whether Billy Lee was just having a look around to I've got you beat. Didn't see Hanela down the outside, and didn't get past Wingspan, who'd been given a brilliant ride by Ryan Moore from the front. Ryan Moore got a bit of stick from somebody in my DMs. Interestingly, the person only DMs me to slag off jockeys. I actually posted a tweet about that today, just showing what he does. I think Ryan, he gave a couple. He got a couple wrong. I think he got just got beat on Henry Matisse. Not his fault at all. And this guy was like, "Oh, he's rubbish. I'm never backing him again." Well, don't, mate. But yeah, Purple Lily, I thought Billy Lee was just kind of looking around, thinking he'd got everything beat. If he'd gone a little bit earlier, I think he might have won on Purple Lily. Bedtime Story, really disappointing in the Moy Glare. Probably done too much this season. Don't give up on her if you've backed her for the Guineas next year. I'm sure she'll be back to her best next season. I've mentioned the Flying 5. I've given a mention to the Legends. The Legends Classified Stakes. I mean, why on earth is the likes of Megan Nichols riding then, and David England and Jason Edmonds, Brian Cooper? They're not legends. Come on, guys. We need to sort this out. And got beat on the favourite, Megan Nichols, and she found it hilarious. And ITV found it hilarious. Not a good look. Off to the Vincent O'Brien Stakes, the Group 1. Henry Matisse is, for me, definitely the best horse in that race. Showed signs of being quirky, ran around, hung both ways, looked like he was going to win it quite comfortably, came there travelling really strongly through the gaps. When Ryan said go, the horse was like, woo, let's just wobble all over the place. Really worrying and concerning that. Going forward, could be tricky. At Doncaster, this was another one of those races. At Doncaster, I made a tweet about this. Baldomero won it by coming down the near side. And actually at about 2 furlongs to go, or even 3 furlongs to go, they're almost in a line across the track. Why are those horses that can be held up stuck out in the middle? The likes of Takarib Bay, Flaming Rib, Silver Samurai. They're out in the middle of the track. Look, who was riding those? Joe Levy, Jason Hart, Daniel Muscat. They're all out in the middle of the track, which is not the place to be. And yeah, it was just a terrible demonstration of the jockey skills from those jockeys. They've got to go, well, we've got to slot in behind, we've got to go down the inside, down the near side with Baldomero, who was, I mean, it'd been working all weekend, that down that near side was working out better, and yet they stayed in the middle of the track. Don't understand. 2 to go. Quick mention of the Summer Sprint Series final. I think the Eyecatcher of the race was beyond equal. Went off 9-2 favourite for this race last year. Disappointed. Came back this year off a £5 lower mark. Travelled really strongly throughout the race. Did not get a run. I don't think they'll weight this again for the whole season. This is what I want to put. So what I'm saying there is the next couple of runs, I think they'll go, damn it, we missed out winning that race. Let's go and win a race now. And they might go and win a couple of races. And if, in 8 months' time, for example, they haven't really won many races or they're still around the same sort of mark, then they might go, let's try and start planning the horse for next year. The horse is 9 though, so it's not like they can really hold him back for too long. I think they'll go and win as many races as they can now on Beyond Equal. And finally, the last race I wanted to quickly mention was Kyprios winning over 1.6 miles. Lovely bit of pacemaking from the Euphrates. Best horse won the race, second best horse second, third best horse third. No arguments from me there at all. So if you want to add a few horses to your NagMes, there's definitely a few. Let's quickly go through them. Vintage Clarets and Aberama Gold for the reasons that we are well aware of. Vera Verto for a potential Chester Cup next season. Definitely recommend adding Mr. King if he drops back in trip. Valedictory, I'm going to go for that as the pronunciation, will definitely improve for all that run. Bo Pedro, I hope, is left on the same mark. These two, Greek Flower and Strike Red, I think will both be nice in handicaps still to come this season. Don't give up on them at all. And probably the final one being the Beyond Equal. I think he'll win a couple of races very quickly now. Thanks for listening. Hope you did have a good weekend. We will be back later this week with our National Hunt horses to follow.